run the world's tiniest boutiques with KOLLECTIN.
Welcome to Girl Influence Power Podcast. I'm your host, Nadia Lee, entrepreneur, jewelry designer, CEO, co-founder of KOLLECTIN, an app that lets you shop influencer and designer labels direct from the source. Thank you for tuning in live on CastBox. This episode is brought to you by KOLLECTIN. Shop the world's tiniest boutiques in partnership with CastBox. For those tuning in first time on my podcast, what is Girl Influence Power? This is my podcast dedicated to interviewing influential women, whether she's an entrepreneur, a business leader, an influencer, or a public figure, to explore the common threads that bind us together and makes us the kind of woman that we are today. So today, we have the young and impactful Sarah Trott on our podcast. Sarah previously worked as a TV reporter and weekend morning anchor for ABC News Channel 3 in Palm Springs. Her coverage ranged from live reporting on wildfires and natural disasters to entertainment, philanthropy, and red carpet awards. She graduated from the University of Missouri-Columbia with a degree in broadcast journalism, TV reporting, and anchoring, and a minor in political science. Throughout college, she worked at NBC affiliate KOMU as a reporter, anchor, and entertainment host, and interned with NBC4, WRC in Washington, D.C., and CBS 8 in San Diego. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming all the way. This is like the first time I've seen a guest in 3 months. So how I got to know Sarah, it was also through KOLLECTIN's community events. And she's also a fellow podcaster, and she has her own podcast called From Here to Where. And I listened to her recent episode on what it's like to experience coronavirus through Sarah's eyes and being young in 20s in her LA, the second largest city in U.S., and really being forced to be part of this social experiment by sheltering at home. Sarah really captured the essence of how she is feeling and experiencing through this period of time. So I was really moved by the episode. So
thank you.
Really great job. So if you guys are listening here on this podcast, remember to tune in right after for that particular episode. And others too. They're all really good. Anyway, we'll just get started and we'll get to know a little bit more about Sarah. So in the past 6 months, let's say, I guess we could say during COVID or a little bit prior, so many things have changed in this world.
Yeah.
So how has the recent events changed your worldview?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about the magnitude of everything we're experiencing right now. I think when we started 2020, a lot of people were saying, this will be the year 2020, a new decade, and I don't think any of us anticipated, the year being like this, with the global pandemic, with a quarantine, the civil unrest, the protests, the riots. A lot of people didn't anticipate to be on unemployment and be stuck at home. And so it's kind of coming to terms that, things sometimes are up in the air and you have to adapt. And then also just reflect and grow. And I think, it's changed my worldview and hopefully other people's worldviews to be more empathetic and just to really pause and reflect and embrace this change in an uncomfortable time.
Yeah, it's definitely the great reset.
The big reset for sure.
Right. So let's talk about the voices of your generation. So there's certainly irony when it comes to being on internet and the audience would berate Kendall Jenner for glamorizing protests, with a Pepsi ad. But yet the public also turns around and really berate influencers or anyone who is on social media who doesn't immediately voice their opinions or support some cause or, respond to some posts. So how do you navigate through this tricky landscape?
It's incredibly difficult and unprecedented, and you mentioned Kendall Jenner, and I did see a meme like, hey, Kendall, where are you when we need you the most? And it was the photo of her handing a Pepsi can to a police officer. And so I think there is something to be said about responding in a timely manner. If you are a celebrity and have that influencer status, people are influenced by you and they look to you, for direction and dialogue. And, I also do think, though, at the same point, you need to take time to educate yourself. And before you repost something or just spew an opinion or information, you need to listen and educate yourself and take time too.
Right,
so I think
that's true.
I see both sides of it, but it's definitely difficult and very sensitive time.
Right. It's very sensitive. There's a lot of haters.
Yeah.
Is there a particular way you respond to haters if they start, writing things that are not very kind, which is very common nowadays?
Yeah, it's really common. I think it's unfortunate people can hide behind their screens and say things. I think if you're on social media, you should be willing to say what you're commenting to someone's face. But I try to respond, directly and, but also to try to see their side too. And, I fortunately haven't had to deal with that too much. I think
that's nice.
A lot of people may not see it, it could be behind your back or it could be, directly, but I think just responding with kindness and or ignoring it because a lot of times it's their own issue, their own insecurities.
That's
and
true.
I don't know why people do that. It doesn't help anything.
Right. No, I agree. Especially like one of the topics right now is white privilege. So to you personally, was it more of like a wake up call or is it something that you were always conscientious of?
Yeah, I think, this is reminiscent of in 2014. So I went to the University of Missouri, Columbia, and that was really a wake up call in 2014 after the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, that prompted the Black Lives Matter movement. That was a wake up call. I really saw racism and, those issues really come to a head for the first time. And I admit I kind of grew up in a suburban bubble in San Diego. And I did, house building trips and traveled and, different, organizations to see different parts of life. But I admit I did come from a very privileged background. And it was really shocking and eye-opening to see people who were my friends on campus yet condemn these protests that were happening as the Black Lives Matter movement, started. And so that was really a wake-up call to, reconsider, who are these people who are your friends? And just it was a shocking time to be kind of in the center of that. We had national news networks, on our lawn at our campus because our school was so close to where these big protests were happening.
Right.
So I think, this has been a wake-up call again, but also just a reminder to...
That's true.
This is important today. It's been important then, and it's something we need to continue every day.
Address, yes. And the conversation helps too. The open conversations. Yeah. I mean, just hearing people's voices, I think helps.
Totally.
So let's talk about what shaped your world I can't talk today, worldview. Where were you born and raised? A little bit about your background.
Yeah, I was born and raised in San Diego, California. My parents, my mom is a teacher. My dad is a businessman, and I have an older sister, and grew up just kind of by the beach in beautiful Southern California. And so my parents thought I was crazy when I wanted to move halfway across the country to Missouri, where I wanted to go to school, and had no connections, no family there, but there was a phenomenal journalism school there. And
nice. Yeah.
I grew up just like loving being in front of the camera, making mock newscasts in my garage and interviewing my dog and doing funny weather reports outside. I think I was a sassy little kid. I was just watching during quarantine with my family some old home videos, and I do the most bizarre things, like doing like these funny dances in front of our video cameras, and just I was a really silly little kid.
So did you always know you wanted to go into broadcasting journalism?
It was a ritual to watch the evening news with my parents. And I think that's what really sparked this fascination and curiosity with TV and journalism. And, as a little girl, I so greatly admired these confident, articulate, intelligent, trustworthy, beautiful women that were on TV. And I aspired to be like them. Like, how do I do this? And I asked my parents, how do you get on TV? I mean, this was before influencers. This was before Instagram. And, now the barriers to entry are a little bit lower, to have a podcast or to be a journalist. But at the time, those were the only people that were giving you information. And so my parents told me, you get a journalism degree. It's really competitive. And they were worried about me. It's a cutthroat industry. And I went for it. I went to the University of Missouri.
That's nice. How else were your parents impactful?
They were so impactful in that they were so supportive and pushed me. I think they were just the perfect balance of, you know, helicopter parents, but not so much. You know, that they wanted the best for me, but they also wanted me to figure things out on my own.
That's nice.
To ask for more, to assume leadership positions when I was young, to, you know, be confident and also just be involved in the community. I was involved in community service clubs, and to just have a greater world perspective, I think through travel and just through the organizations they were involved in, it was inspiring to me and prompted me to have a greater consciousness for the world around you.
Right. So it all started from when you were little too. So what is it like to be in high school? Like we have a lot of listeners who have like this image that are international, who have this image of, you know, U.S. high school. Like, what is it like? Especially being in San Diego by the beach. I mean, like, share a little bit of experience of how high school is. Is it as glamorized or as fun, or is it?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I mean, having high school prom, and we had an outdoor grassy quad with benches around it where, you know, the jocks would sit there, kind of the sports people and the cheerleaders. And it kind of felt like that. We would have 6th period off, and some of my friends senior year, you know, if you have a free period at the end of the day, they would go take their surfboards and go to the beach and surf and, you know, ditch school to go do that. It was really fun. Looking back, I'm so grateful and lucky for that experience. It sometimes felt like a movie, but there's also not glamorous parts too, taking AP classes and being stressed about college entry and
That's true.
all of that.
Do you play sports in high school?
I played tennis, and I also did track and field and high jump.
Nice.
And then I kind of quit that my junior and senior year so I could pursue broadcast journalism, some of the media courses. I was the editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper, and that was like a full-time job. So
that's true.
put the sports to the side. I'm not super competitive with sports. But
do you think sports is important? Like, you know, like now that you're in your career phase, is sports that were back then, you know, just high school sports, was it important, or, you know,
totally.
in any way?
Yeah, I mean, you learn teamwork, you create a community, you find your niche of people. I think whether it's sports or clubs or organizations or bands, theater, I think those are so important. And my mom is a teacher, and I'm seeing how there's so many funding cuts to those extracurricular programs, which I think are just as important, if not more important than you know, the science and the English classes, because you learn your social skills and your people skills that way.
Totally agree. I'm actually a tennis player too, and I play tennis.
Oh, we should play sometime.
I know, in high school and in college, which was very rare actually for an Asian back then. But especially Asians, they're all like, the parents are all into, like, you know, academics. So, so was your mom like your female model growing up, or was there someone else who was very impactful that was women?
Yeah, you know, my mom always was working, you know, same with my dad. And that was a great role model to see a strong, you know, woman, powerful woman who I just admired her, you know, the fact that she would get up in front of a classroom and educate students. You know, that was just so inspiring to me. My older sister was inspiring to me as well. But also these women, you know, on TV were so inspiring to me.
Oh, that's nice. So then when you graduated from college, were you like super excited to get out in the real world and really use your journalism degree? What did you do after that?
Yeah, I was ready to get out of, you know, college. I enjoyed it, but also there were parts that I didn't enjoy. You know, I was ready to be an adult. And I during the spring semester of my senior year, signed a contract with the ABC affiliate in Palm Springs. So I knew that I had a job after graduation. And so I could really enjoy those last couple weeks and months of college, because
nice.
I had worked so hard to get to that point. Sign the contract. I have a job. I'm going to be good.
So what was your experience like being being so young and then a reporter with a station that, you know?
It was hard, you know, especially as a young woman, you want to be taken seriously. I think that's not something that's granted to you. You have to work for that. And that was hard to earn respect, but you do that just by holding yourself to a certain standard and just being incredibly professional. You know, and just have dealt with different experiences in my time. you know, if you've seen the movie Bombshell, it's not too far from the truth, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, of the
okay.
the broadcast industry.
Right,
so
right,
you
right,
really
right.
have to have a good head on your shoulders and a thick
that's
skin.
true. That's true. Yeah, definitely. So for a woman amplifying her voice in today's world, how do you feel like in terms of opportunity for women? Do you think there's more, or do you think there still needs to be dramatic changes for career women?
I think there should still be changes. I think there are lots of opportunities. But, you know, women are just as capable as men. And I think it's a culture shift that needs to happen. Like we're seeing so many different things come to a head right now. Important issues that need to be addressed, racial injustice, you know, income inequality, you know, the pay gap between men and women. All of those things are so important. And unfortunately, it just takes time. But I think putting pressure on that and magnifying it, putting a light on it, I think that's really important. And women are just as capable as men. Ask for more, demand more, speak up. You know, don't be meek, don't hold back. You know, be strong and pursue what you want. Ask for it. I think anyone can do it. So.
Yeah. Do you have any bad experience, like being a woman and, you know, do your first job, like any horrible situations that you were like, give advice for other young women?
Yeah. You know, I think, and I saw, you know, we're talking a little bit about the Me Too movement, you know, and I think I'm so grateful that happened. And I just, you know, caution young women to be really assertive and have your eyes open, because not everyone will have your best interest in mind. You may be presented with situations that make you uncomfortable, especially with men who are in positions of authority and want to show you favoritism and how that translates to other coworkers and peers, and walking this fine line of being respectful, because we're taught, you know, be respectful of your elders and don't, you know, I don't know. It's
to undermine them.
Undermine them. Right. Yeah. And so I think it's hard as a young woman because you don't want to ruffle any feathers.
Right. Because it's new and you're trying to make a good impression, try to do your job. But it's also, it's a fine line. And you really have to teach, you know, all the other girls out there, like you need to make your good judgment. and don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid and speak up. And if you witness something, a friend, or if it happens to yourself, or if you just know in your gut something is wrong, you know, report it and speak up and say that I don't appreciate that comment. That doesn't make me feel comfortable.
That's true.
I wish I could have told myself that, you know, when I was younger. But you just have to learn and protect yourself with this armor of like thick skin. I think.
Yeah. And really, it gets easier.
It gets easier. Oh my goodness. Every year, I feel like every year you just walk into more confidence, and through experiences, you know what to say.
Because first couple of times you're probably scared. And I mean, I still remember the first time I spoke up to, you know, like another CEO that was a man that made a very nasty comment.
Yeah.
I was shaking and I was really just angry inside, and then I almost felt like tears were coming down my cheeks, you know, but just you can't control it because it's hard. And to be in that position and, you know, to feel like, hey, you know, that's just not cool. But then actually now it's like it just comes out.
It just comes out.
Yeah, it comes out with age and practice and just being more comfortable. So it's good advice. All right, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Sarah.
Now you can try before you buy on KOLLECTIN. Introducing Experience, the new way to shop jewelry. Flaunt your style and express your creativity with experience. Get it today, only on KOLLECTIN.
Welcome back to Girl Influence Power. Today we have Sarah Trott. We're going to talk more about what she's doing currently. So I know you found your own podcast, From Here to Where. So tell us a little bit more about what that is and what, you know, how did you come up with the concept, and so we can all know more about it.
Sure. Well, From Here to Where is my podcast and overall brand, kind of like a girl's guidebook to the 20s. And it started with me, honestly, not knowing my direction of where I was going. I was in a crossroads with my career, caring as a caregiver for my father with ALS, and just feeling really confused and uncertain. And also, I sometimes joke that this whole brand and podcast started with a lie, that your 20s are going to be the best decade of your life, which is, it's true in a way, but also what they don't teach you in school is, all of the difficulties you'll encounter,
Right.
dealing with career stress and relationships, mental health, wellness.
Right.
And so just hearing from strong, inspiring, successful women on what they wish they knew before they started their 20s.
Right. So quite a change, right? You're usually interviewing them, and today you're on my podcast being interviewed.
It's fun. It's nice.
Yep. So now you're a girl of influence, and you not only just do podcasts, you also have your Instagram accounts. You're a social media pretty much influencer. Your model. So there's so many ways to get your voice out. Now, take me through your process, like when you're formulating brands. Like, how do you know when and how each is going to come into play?
Yeah, I think it's so funny. I never expected to become an influencer or anything like that. It was just, this natural progression of moving from a TV personality to a digital media personality.
Right.
And I really think about, who is my audience? What is my message? And when brands are approaching me like, hey, could you promote this product? Is this something I would genuinely use and genuinely recommend to others?
Right.
Does this fit with health and wellness and, young women? Or is this, something that's totally irrelevant? And I'll get some off the wall messages. Like,
Right. So it has to be really within that theme that you're really trying to, make your brand to be, right?
Right.
Okay, so now from social media to COVID to Black Lives Matter, your generation is building on careers with these very unique set of circumstances. So what's it like to be in your 20s now? And then do you have high hopes for the future?
I do. I mean, I'm an optimist. I know we're going through incredibly difficult times right now, but I am so grateful to be living in this time that we have communication, we have technology, we have the ability to influence and impact people. I mean, social media is negative in many ways, but also it's really positive, and you can touch a lot of people's lives in ways that we never were able to before. So I'm interested to see how things will change and progress. I mean, the broadcast industry, my TV background, that's undergoing a huge tectonic shift and moving toward digital. And I think it'll only get better. It's sometimes Black Mirror scary sometimes, but overall optimistic. Yeah,
that's true. So you're pretty much the first generation that grew up entirely on social media. And I have a young daughter myself. So what kind of advice would you give them for anyone that's growing up or going into this social media digital world?
I think be cautious of what you say. It will follow you everywhere. I mean,
it never erases.
It never erases. So any, photos or comments, I know friends that tweeted something, 7 years ago and became public figures, and that gets brought up through the archives. So just to be really conscious of what your footprint is in the digital landscape.
That's true. Yeah. You think you can erase it, but you actually can't. There's always a copy somewhere.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So now this digital generation, this is something I'm curious because I'm a little bit older than you. But anyway, dating seems to be really difficult or very easy on a digital platform. So what's that experience been like for you?
So this may be the unpopular opinion, but I actually prefer like meeting people online. I feel like I'm so busy, and the people that in traditional ways of meeting people, like a guy coming up to you at a bar, I feel like online dating levels the playing field for women because it's a mutual connection.
That's true.
Yeah, you can quickly see their occupation and photos and what they're into, and you can kind of see their digital profile, and is this going to be a match? Is this not? I like it.
That's good. So for how has the relationship changed in COVID? Like if you're seeing someone or I have a boyfriend, that kind of thing. How's that impacted?
I actually got out of a relationship before COVID, so I have been, on my own through this, and I think it's actually been empowering to just go through this hard time and really rely on my family and friends and myself.
That's true.
And focus on my career. But yeah, relationships, still messaging people on these dating apps. It's so random. And now the world is opening. It's kind of fun. I think it's important to date a variety of people to really see, who you're compatible with.
That's true. That's
and
true.
to be really solid in yourself and your career before you settle down with someone.
That's true. That's true. Because usually, 20s is all about fun, building a career, and eventually settling down. So, do you think the side gig economy like changed this whole, this entire environment? I mean, we have Tinder, we have,
Yeah,
all these swipe up, swipe left, swipe right. I can't even keep track anymore.
I know, it's a lot. I mean, I think it's definitely changing the way people are viewing long-term relationships. And I think you're oversaturated with options. Mm-hmm. So I do see some of that. Like the culture is to not really settle down because you think that there's something, the next best thing is out there. So
right.
I don't know. I think if you have a genuine connection with someone, people are getting married much later.
Right.
I think that's probably better, that you're able to date and just really be solidified in yourself as a person before you have a marriage. But it's totally a personal preference.
That's true. I agree.
Yeah.
So how about the Me Too movement? Is it easier for young women to navigate the career world now? It's almost like people say, do we try to use it in our favor? Or, sometimes I go, some of the men I interact with, they just, that's because it's like this Me Too movement.
Yeah.
So it gives us a false sense of like we're being empowered, but are we really being empowered in the workforce?
Yes, I think so. I'm so grateful for the brave women who came forward and, shared their experiences. Mm-hmm. Because big or small, I think, unfortunately, every woman will deal with something.
Right.
Hopefully not to the magnitude of some of the victims that came forward in the Me Too movement. But they have laid the groundwork for us to feel empowered to report things, to speak up, to say no. And, it has brought hypersensitivity to the issue. And maybe some people are wrongly accused. But I think it's just so important to have that dialogue. And I'm grateful for those brave women who started the movement for sure.
Right. So what does that word feminism mean to you now?
Yeah, I think it's just, so there's kind of a negative stigma with the word. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that's evolving and adapting. But I think it's just demanding equal rights, equal payment, just equality between men and women in all facets of life, in relationships, in the workforce, just in the entire world. And I think it's an important thing. You shouldn't be looked down upon as being a feminist.
Right. That's true.
Empowering women and supporting other women.
Right.
And
So now how are you using your voice to impact women? Because you have a broadcast, you have awesome broadcasting voice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I'm using it through my podcast and just my transparency online. I think it used to be people love to see these glamorous photos, online. But I think if you can post, beautiful, amazing photos, but also have a caption or, an Instagram versus reality and really break down some of the facade and just be honest with your struggles, with your insecurities. I think that is empowering to women because not everyone can be perfection. That's just, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Right. That's
so
true.
To just really get that message, and through my podcast, just hearing from, women who came from all different walks of life. One of my favorite episodes is a former professional dancer who had a very interesting career path in male-dominated industries, doing professional dancing in Japan and all across the world, and how she used those skills of navigating, men and creepy men to become very successful in commercial real estate. And so
nice.
Just hearing all of these crazy zigzag trajectories, it's inspiring.
Right. That's true. Life is not always as expected.
Right.
Right. And for you and for everyone else too, as
Completely.
well. I know you've always talked about your father who has ALS and he's, battling ALS, which is, for people who doesn't know what ALS is, can you tell them a little bit more about what it is? And then how is it being such a young person dealing with a family member who has ALS? Yeah.
ALS is a motor neuron disease. So basically your brain is completely capable. It's not like dementia or something where, your mind deteriorates. It's just your body and your muscles are failing you. Right. So, from being able to walk, to talk, to eat. So it's an incredibly cruel disease. And my heart goes out to anyone who is young and has a parent who is suffering from, any sort of disease.
Right.
It's incredibly shocking and jarring to come to terms with the fact that, your parent is dying. And so that's also another reason I wanted to have this podcast is to bring comfort to young women who are going through grief and loss and anticipatory grief and loss. So
that's true.
It's incredibly hard, but his positivity and optimism is unparalleled. I mean, he's such a light in our community and has inspired so many people because he could choose to be angry or he could choose to be strong and resilient in the face of adversity. And he has inspired so many people. And I find inspiration from him because he was a huge role model to me growing up.
Yes. Oh, that's very sweet. Yeah. And the voice really does connect. And then, for those out there who are also grieving because there's so many losses, especially with family losses of the elderly people too, that the voice actually really heals. I personally, lost my father just not very long ago, like 6 months ago. And, people say, well, sometimes I don't know what to say to someone who's grieving or someone who's facing a difficult situation medically, or they're going through something, difficult. But being there myself, I know, like, just that phone call, just hearing a voice, you don't have to say anything. Just say that, I understand or I'm here. I think that really helps. So for those out there who thinks like, I'm just going to let her get through it and then I'll check in. Don't do that.
Nope, don't do that. Be there for them, I'm so grateful for the community of friends. And, I've been in San Diego. My parents have been there for almost 30 years. And so they've established such a great network of friends. And we couldn't have done this without them. People just popping in to say, hey, we're thinking about you. And when all of your, everyday abilities are stripped from you, having human connection, even though my dad can't talk or communicate, he can still listen and be part of the family. And, it's those things matter so much.
That's true. That's true. That's very nice. Yeah. And that's nice for you to share too, because it could be a very difficult topic to talk about. Yeah.
It's gotten easier for sure. Over time, it gets easier, But.
So what can we expect from Sarah Trott in the next 10 years?
Oh my goodness. Watch out, worlds. No, I think, I have a lot of aspirations with media and communication. I love interviewing people. I love sharing stories. And so I would love, my dream job would be, the host of my own TV show or something like that. But yeah, I would love to start a philanthropic organization to empower young women through careers and scholarship. I want to write a book one day, maybe about grief and loss, dealing with that as a young person. I want to travel the world when we can.
I know. We do miss that.
Yeah. I can't wait to get on a plane when it's clean and safe and sanitary.
That's true. That's true. I think we all look forward to that. It's going to be a quiet summer this year, but hopefully next summer.
At least
anytime.
We're in LA. We're in beautiful LA.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you so much for coming to our show. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And having such an honest, open conversation. I know there's so many women out there who would like to hear your voice and also know they're in the same circumstances, and also kind of hear firsthand really your personal hardships, any stories that you feel like would really motivate the women to, any women to be out there doing what they love. So for any one of you who haven't followed Sarah, you need to follow her.
Thank you.
So you could do that on the podcast platform, any podcast platform. So the podcast, again, is From Here to Where. Or you can follow her on social media, Instagram at the Sarah Trott, or simply go to her website and read her blog at sarahtrottmedia.com. And if you enjoyed our podcast today, please subscribe to our podcast and then check out our videos on our website, girlinfluencepower.com, or on the KOLLECTIN's YouTube channel. Well, there you have it. Sarah Trott, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.